going to talk today about my experience with combining vipassana, meditation, and ayahuasca, the plant medicine. I recently had some really hard time in my life that I was going through, and I was facing myself and not really dealing with myself and not really dealing with the things that were coming up, and it was a big mess. And because I had done vipassana before, I knew of this amazing thing, and I thought it's time to do it again. So what I did was I signed up a couple months in advance to join a 10-day silent meditation course that is in Poland. They're all around the world, but this one was close by, just 200 kilometers from Berlin, where I live. And I went there, arriving the day before it started and checking in and everything, and I stayed for basically 12 days because you leave on the 11th day. And what it is a meditation course, a type of meditation that was taught by the Buddha. It was taught by Siddhartha Gautama back in India 2,500 years ago. And this was a type of meditation that the Buddha taught. It wasn't the only type. But apparently, so I've heard, it's the kind that the Buddha reached enlightenment with. So may we all be enlightened. I had done this type of course. I'd done a vipassana retreat in 2006 and 2007. Now it's 2018. So much time had passed. And previously I had done it in Thailand, in southern Thailand, Surat Thani, outside of a little town called Chaya at Swanmok Monastery, which is an incredible place. It's on a coconut grove, and you're outside all of the time, and you sleep on a very hard bed, and it's very, rugged kind of living, and I gained so much from that experience. But 11 years later, I really feel like it was a new experience for me. So vipassana, what you do during this course is you spend the first 3 days learning about respiration, and it's all essentially guided. You're told how to do it, and this is all through recordings from S.N. Goenka, who was a teacher of vipassana for about 50 years before he passed away several years ago. And so there are recordings of his voice and of his teachings. And there's also Dhamma talks that we hear every evening, which is a video of him talking about the practice of vipassana and how to integrate this in our everyday life. So I did the vipassana, which was maybe 10 hours of meditation per day, and afterwards I had about maybe 1.5 weeks break, and then I did an ayahuasca process, a healing process, which was in Barcelona. So again, not that far. You can do vipassana all around the world. You can do ayahuasca all around the world, and have all sorts of experiences. I'm just speaking of my experience here in Europe and what I experienced and what I've gained from doing these two together. The vipassana was really difficult because I was sitting for 10 hours a day, sometimes less, and facing myself, and you don't have the option of distractions like phones or devices or people to talk to. You don't have books or music nothing really, except yourself. And you have food, which is breakfast and lunch every day, but the last meal is finished by noon, and so you're essentially fasting for 18 hours a day. In the afternoons, late afternoon, you have a tea or some water. You can always drink tea and water, but they have a special like tea in the evening, and for the new students, they provide fruit. So it's easier to deal if you're a newbie. The vipassana at this time in my life was extremely transformative. I will not lie, and I have to say that I wanted to leave all the time. I thought about packing my bags and going. I thought about, this is so difficult, I want to do something easier, I'm just going to go home. I'm just going to leave here and go do something else. I had all sorts of ideas, and believe me, you have time to think about this stuff. And it was quite a challenge to stay. There was one time where I was really losing it. I was really sad. I was dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of sadness and mourning around things happening in my life. And at one point, about the fourth day, I spoke with one of the teachers, because they have two teachers there, one for the women, one for the men. And because everything is segregated, you only would speak to a woman if you had to talk to somebody. And so I spoke with this teacher, and she gave me some coping mechanisms, explained how you can feel the sadness now and be here with the vipassana and do this meditation, or you can leave. And she said, I'm not going to keep you from leaving. And you can leave, and if you leave, then the sadness is going to come up anyway. Maybe it's now, maybe it's later, but it's essentially unavoidable. So why not stay? Anyway, I stayed. She also gave me some specific coping mechanisms around dealing with sadness, and specific sensations to be aware of, and focusing on my hands, for example, when I'm feeling this sadness. And on day 4, it was the day that I had a really tough day and that I went to this teacher. Day 4, you begin the vipassana teachings. And vipassana, after the first 3 days of focusing on respiration and focusing on the nasal area where the breath is going in and out, vipassana takes you through your entire body. So you start to work with the sensations on your body and eventually in your body, and then connecting that to respiration. What I got out of this vipassana course, and in general vipassana, is heightened awareness around what I experience. So I go through my day, and there are difficult times, and things don't always go the way I expected them to go, etc. And sometimes it's angering, or sometimes it's scary, or sometimes I feel jealousy, or I feel sadness. Sometimes I feel joy. I feel all these things, right? Most of us do. And this taught me a lot about seeing the emotion or seeing the sensation and experiencing it, and just seeing it for what it is and observing that, and not getting attached to it, not following it, not reacting to it. My biggest teaching from this was really learning to tone down reacting to the stuff that comes. So instead of feeling angry and wanting to seek revenge, or wanting to hurt myself or to hurt somebody else physically or emotionally, instead I am now much better at just feeling the sensation when I feel angry. Maybe it's in my head, or maybe it's in my belly, or maybe it's in my heart somewhere, right? And when I'm experiencing this, I'm learning to better just observe it and see it and watch it and see how it changes, and there's a word that is taught during the vipassana course, which is called anicca, and anicca means impermanence. And this word really resonated with me. It was during this course that, because this word resonated with me so much, and I could feel the importance of this word, that I decided after the course I would get my first tattoo, which is the word anicca in Sanskrit. So there it is. And that's a beautiful thing for me, and it's just for me. It's not for anybody else. It's something I need a reminder of, and I wanted a reminder of in my life. Because everything comes and everything goes, and there's no holding on to it. Once you hold on to it, it slips away. And the seasons change, relationships change, homes, jobs, situations, friendships, communication, ourself, all these things are changing. And so with vipassana, it's not just the little things, it's the big things that you can observe. And when you sit in meditation, it's a sort of quieting, it's a sort of peaceful sitting and allowing and accepting of what is, and knowing that it will change. We can just watch it change. We don't have to get involved with everything and making it change with such force. So this vipassana, this experience, it taught me a lot. I'm much better now at observing my reactions to things, and maybe not reacting, but observing the emotions, observing how my body feels, what happens with my breath. And less clinging to what is, or what I want to have happen, or what I want to, what I want to occur or something. And now, having had that teaching, the hard work is to incorporate this into my daily life, of course, but also to keep meditating and to not rag on myself when I'm not meditating. So with vipassana, the recommendation is to meditate 2 hours per day, which seems like a lot. But meditating for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour before bed, it really contributes a lot to one's peace of mind. And although I'm not always doing this 2 hours of meditation, I do what I can do, and it always helps me. It always helps bring me a little bit more into a calm place, and a place of being able to observe and to see things as they really are and not attached to them. So after my vipassana course, I came back to my real world, my life, my family, friends, where I live, etc. And then I went away to Barcelona to spend a few days by myself and with close friends. But then I went to this healing process, which was a group of people led by one guide who had led me before with an ayahuasca process in another country. And it was a group of maybe 14 or 15 people, and it was held in a beautiful home. And for the actual process, we sat in a circle and shared what our intentions were, as well as doing group building beforehand and eating really delicious vegetarian food beforehand. So going into the ayahuasca process, it's essentially about 6 hours long, and it usually takes place in the dark, maybe with a candle in the middle of the circle. And this time we were sitting on chairs and sofas, etc. But I've also done it where I've sat on the floor. And this was my 5th time to do this plant medicine. And I feel like because of my openness with the Vipassana experience, I was able to be quite more open and allowing of whatever needed to come. So the story that people tell about ayahuasca is that most of the time it feels like there's a female presence, that it's Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Aya, and when she comes to you, she, maybe you're resistant, maybe you're holding on and like, I'm not gonna feel this, or I'm not gonna go there, and sometimes she's gentle with you, like, okay, take your time, and sometimes she's like, bam, smack in the face, like, you need to see this right now. And with my experience this time, it was pretty gentle, but at the same time, because I was so open, and I said this also with my intention that I wanted to go deeper into myself, and I felt that need and that desire to just be open. So with this experience, I didn't feel a whole lot with my first drink, because you drink 3 times if you want to. But with my first drink, I didn't feel much, but I was just feeling the plant come into me and just feeling her enter my system and feeling not so comfortable, but just like feeling her in my body. And I felt a little bit sick, and I felt a little bit off, just adjusting to what this plant feels like inside me. And when it was time for the second drink, there were only a few of us who actually took the second drink, because most people were already deep in their stuff and they were fine. They didn't need any more at that time. And when I took my second drink, I sat down, and there's music playing the whole time. But when I sat back down, there was this song playing, and I just kind of huddled up in a ball and went inward, just went really inward, and all of these things started to arise. And there were many, many things going on that evening, many events, like going deep into some childhood issues, some maybe childhood trauma, if you would call it that, but understanding my childhood in a new way that I hadn't been open to before. There was also, I had many, many moments where I would just spend time with somebody. Like I could see my best friend vividly and feel this connection and understand this sisterhood on a very deep level. I also, with my ex, I was able to understand very deeply, like inside my body, in my cells, in my bones, like I could feel how he felt at some point during some of our relationship turbulence. And it gave me that insight, that level of empathy that I wasn't able to experience before with the meditation or with other mechanisms. There were many points where, I would just see somebody and understand this relationship. I saw my children and could see more clearly what was going on with them in their life. I could see my own childhood and how I was raised and how my parents parented me being reflected in how I now parent my children, and the path that becomes very natural and automatic for me, how it's maybe detrimental to my children, whereas when I was raised that way, it seemed like the most normal thing, and I didn't have any issues with it before. But then I could see, looking at it now, 20 years, 30 years past these moments of my childhood, how actually that was really hard on me, and I could see how I don't want to do the same thing that my parents did, and I have a choice. And I firmly believe that my parents did everything that they could have done and that they were able to do, that they did their best at that time, parenting myself and my siblings. But for me, I know that with this level of awareness and deeper understanding, like really on an innate level, I can see how my choices are truly choices. It's not, doesn't have to be running on automatic, that I can behave the way my parents behaved, the way I was taught to, but I can also change that, and I can also go about things in a different way. For example, one of my parents would hold back affection, wouldn't hug me. And it wasn't like they said, no, I'm not going to hug you. It just didn't come, even at times where I needed it. But there were a few times where I needed it, and it did come. So it's not black or white. But I see also in my own relationship with my children that sometimes I'm holding back my affection. And with this understanding and awareness, I'm able to make different decisions about holding back or putting forth or stepping out of my comfort zone, because I actually feel this is the right thing to do, and I understand it's better this way, even though it's difficult. Difficulty kind of comes with it. This experience, was completely transformative, and the hard work is always when you're getting all these lessons, because you get a lot. You can get really a lot, and it can be really heavy, and it can be really deep, and it can be very emotional. You could be laughing, you can be crying, you could be weeping, you could be mourning, you could be just like all knotted up because of reflecting on some experiences you've had. But all of this, it's just like, here you go, here you go, here you go. Here's all this stuff, and then you can understand it and you can grasp it. But then the aftermath is where it comes into play. So leaving the ayahuasca process, resting for the evening, the next morning, sharing with the group about my experiences, or with individuals, there's a certain level of exchange that goes on and closure. And then there's a follow-up that I did with my guide, with my kind of coach. And after that, it's all up to you. In this case, it's all up to me. And I've been able to take what I've learned, the lessons that came to me, and I've been able to put them into practice, but only a certain amount. And it's a voyage. It's this consciousness that's there, and I have a choice to work with all this that I have now. It's much more accessible, it's much more attainable, this path to bettering the self and to understanding our true nature. So vipassana and ayahuasca together are such a gift. There are things that are in the works on our planet, pass between humans and plants with the ayahuasca. It's like we have all of these tools. We have so many different things. Some people can meditate, and that's their road to enlightenment. Some people eat well. Some people communicate well. Some people do plant medicines or other drugs. Some people, I don't know, go hike Mount Everest. You do whatever you do to find your way. And I think it's key to find what works for you as an individual, because what works for you doesn't work for me, and vice versa. So in my case, these two coupled together were an extremely just perfect choice as far as what aided me to get to a new place. And my life has changed tremendously since all of this occurred two months ago. I'm much more aware and observant and calm, but at the same time, when I see things come up, I understand that there are these deep levels of my being that need to be examined or observed or understood, or to have empathy for. And really by working on all of this emotional stuff, it plays out in my relationships. I can see how certain aspects to my relationships improve. I can also see how my physical body improves. I feel healthier, I feel stronger, I feel more awake, I feel just more alive and more true to my own nature. and less of this, you know, eating for comfort or sitting in front of a television or a computer. Or I'm definitely doing more reading, I'm doing more yoga, I'm doing more walking, drinking water, eating more plant foods. Being a vegetarian, that's not hard, but it's hard to not eat like the chips and the bread and the crap, you know, like actually I can be a vegetarian and eat ice cream all day. But I honestly, because of the ayahuasca, because of this plant, it's helped me to incorporate things that I know are good for me and know make me feel good into my regular everyday life. So the combination of these two, I feel like it worked for me, and I would easily continue to practice these, the vipassana, to practice my meditation and to do plant medicines like ayahuasca when the opportunity arises, or when I feel like this is something I need right now to go deep again, to dig up some stuff to work with. And ultimately it's up to me to carry it out, and I accept full responsibility for this. And so I'm working on sharing this, I'm working on going through my process and continuing my work in a conscientious way, and telling others about my experience, because when we hear about others' experience, there's something to relate to. Maybe there's a piece that we relate to, and when we do that, it's connecting humans, and this is connecting all of us to our Mother Earth, which is what I feel like plants are doing, what ayahuasca is doing, is helping us connect more to the planet that we've become so distant from. All in all, I can only say that it's up to the individual if you want to do some sort of combining of these two. I would always say, talk to people about it, read about it, maybe try some things, get into meditation a little bit, try it out, and then see if you want to commit to 10 days of vipassana. And as far as plant medicine goes, I feel like that's really an ultimate healer. But it doesn't work for everybody, so you shouldn't be forced to do it or encouraged to do it unless you feel a calling. That's essentially what I wanted to share. And I have to say that I am very thankful for these experiences, and I'm going to continue on my journey, and I'm more devoted and more serious about it than I ever have been, because of putting these two so close together. It really helped me tremendously. Life is on a much clearer path, even on hard days, even at hard moments. I see how it's passing. I feel that this is just a moment in time, and I can see that, and I can see that it's passing, and whatever it is, it's okay. It's hard to let go of like the good stuff, knowing that the good stuff is passing, but it's beautiful to just see that the good stuff is the good stuff and enjoy it right now, and the hard stuff is there too, but you can observe it, and it's also passing, you know, it's also changing. It's like this. It's all impermanent. Anicca. Peace out.